All right, my friends, this is where everything comes together. And you can see the depth behind just these two parts in general right here. We already know that there's depth behind all of this and the use cases they have, at least for like not even coming back and like iterating on them, but just giving you clarity on what you're supposed to start doing at first and kind of actually structuring your life in a sense. I think that's definitely a priority. But in terms of actual content creation, this is where everything happens, okay? So I publish every Saturday. We'll come back to that. But what I do every week at the start of the week, usually on Sunday, where outline and plan, I go to the all in one template, I create it. I have an idea that I either generated from one of the YouTube videos, a popular YouTube video, a Medium article, or just something I want to write about, right? And I'll add that here, and then I'll immediately capture all of my ideas that I have related to that, and I can come back through every during the week and add to this. And then we've already talked about this, but I can add tweets that I've written. I can add other people's tweets that I find throughout the week. I can add quotes that I have saved from Readwise or other places in Notion, and I can add those all here. And then in terms of planning, the topic, so what I'm talking about, and then visualize, right? So when I brainstorm a visualization and I start to map it out in Figma, I keep a few things in mind. One, it's going to be the thumbnail. It's going to be in the thumbnail of the YouTube video. It's going to be an Instagram post every Saturday to announce the newsletter and send people to the newsletter. It's just a base concept of my brand, so I can use that image over and over again in threads and other things because it's a big idea. It's important to me. And they're going to be in my book in the future because you're writing a book while you're doing this. You really are, even if you don't know it yet. But that's where the visualizations can come into play. And of course, it just makes your newsletter that much better. It makes your newsletter stand out, right? And then the big problem, all of this stuff we've already talked about. And these can be used for not only the newsletter headline, but the YouTube video title, possibly a podcast episode title if you're reading from the newsletter itself. It can be, what else? Thread title, mainly YouTube video title and the newsletter title, because those two are so similar, for me at least. And then you go through and you write the actual newsletter, right? And you outline it, it looks all good, but then when it comes to publishing, this is where things really come into play, right? So you brainstorm the hook and the headline, and that is your either YouTube title, because now you can brainstorm both for YouTube and for your newsletter and possibly the podcast, and then the call to action for all of the above, right? So then when you're going through or you're in the YouTube video or you're in the podcast, you can just read off the call to action. Or if it's in the newsletter, then you can read the call to action there as well. The description is for all of the above. So podcast, if the podcast matches the newsletter, YouTube video, intro, the description of the actual newsletter itself, if you upload it to a blog platform or review or Substack, tags for YouTube videos that you can plan here, B-roll for YouTube videos, right? So you can go through the actual article itself and you can start to write down B-roll ideas that you can either film yourself. And B-roll, for those that don't know, it's just like if I'm filming a talking head video like this and I'm speaking to the camera, the B-roll is what is different video. It's like background video, right? That goes over and then I'm talking over it at that point. It's to help create a story and add more visuals. It's like visual storytelling. And so I use story blocks for that, where I just pick and choose videos and add them into there. And this helps with my editor, and we can be on the same page as this because he can come and look. This is where he can come and look for the description, for the B-roll, for the tag. So if you ever hire someone for YouTube or the podcast or something else, you can come in here when you're writing the newsletter and they can just come in here and copy and paste it according to your liking, right? And then I can also write down thumbnail ideas for how I want to do the thumbnails. But of course, it really all comes down to systems. So I have developed my system to a point where for a thumbnail, I screenshot the actual part of the video itself where I find myself with a good face position. So I'll scroll through it, and then if I'm like, right, then I'll I'll take a screenshot of that, and then I go into Photoshop personally and add the visual that I visualized from there to the actual thing itself. And so then every Saturday I send the newsletter out. Now what I do after that is I go to Instagram. So this is my entire strategy at this point. And this is considering that Twitter is your testing ground. So you're consistently popping in ideas there and just seeing what will work best. And then if you want, those can turn into a newsletter. If it's a good tweet of yours, if it does well, it's going to do well as a newsletter, right? And so then on Instagram, every Saturday, I come in and let's look at this one. So I have the graphic. So not only am I adding more diversity to my Instagram, it's just a cool graphic, right? And then I go to my Twitter and I use Twemex to find related tweets. And some of these are in the actual article themselves, right? So it's already done. I'm creating the Instagram post in the newsletter, right? So let's actually go to that post of the newsletter. So here's a newsletter. You can see I have the video here. I had a podcast here, and it's all the same. So you scroll down here, I have the actual image. I could add this. Did I include that in here? Yeah. So I put my tweet in the actual newsletter, and then I used TweetPic, which I showed earlier, to add that tweet here and give it the black and white theme, and then downloaded the select number of tweets from the newsletter and use them in an Instagram carousel, right? So I have this, I have the tweet from Naval above, I have another tweet from Naval, and you can see that's literally my Instagram post where I have an extra tweet that I looked up because I like to do 6 carousels or 6 posts. I don't know why I do that, but just 6 is the number. And then this was in the newsletter. 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 This wasn't in the newsletter, but you see what I'm saying here. And then at the end of these, you can also have a call to action. So I did that on some other ones, like this one. So you can see it's the same thing. This was in the newsletter, I believe. I don't think that was. This was in the newsletter. And then here I have a post that I created in Figma. You can do it in Canva as well. But if you're creating the graphics in Figma, then all you need to do is just copy and paste that and add some text and you're good, right? And that's really it. And you can follow this exact structure if you want to. Just go look at my Instagram, try to emulate the post. That's how you learn how to design things in general. And anything, you try to emulate it and you get better. You reveal your blind spots of what you need to learn, and then you learn those along the way, right? And so that's how I do my Instagram posts every Saturday with this, with other posts spaced in between, some clips from the podcast. But the main things that I would need is like 2 posts a week on Instagram, where it's my favorite tweets that I think work together well. They're kind of like themed posts. And then here it's the visual that I do every week for the newsletter, and then the tweets that I include in the newsletter to help paint a picture and help transition everything inside the newsletter to keep it flowing correctly and kind of add line breaks and hold attention. And then that creates this Instagram post, right? And so then that's the main thing there. So let's see. We got all this stuff. We got the newsletter up. Aside from that, the other thing would be YouTube, which we talked about, where I just read the newsletter from my phone. I literally read the tweets as well and include the tweets in the YouTube video if you want to go and watch those and just look at the similarities there. And that is really it, where it's very cohesive. And then in terms of driving traffic, we already talked about that. So I lead people to the newsletter here to go and read it. I have the newsletters in my concepts, so people can go to that. Every day when I post, I tell people to go and either download a relevant lead magnet or newsletter. So I'm promoting every day on every platform, just like this, right? And eventually you get into the flow. I don't have it insanely structured. I don't schedule anything. This doesn't take me any more than maximum 2 hours, 3 hours a day. That's really it. Like, it takes me 30 minutes to get online and post to Instagram, LinkedIn, copy paste stuff over. And then every week, I write the newsletter, I film the YouTube video, I record the podcast, upload those, and I really don't find myself if I weren't building something, whether it be a product or something else, it wouldn't take me more than 2 to 3 hours a day to maintain this by any means, right? So that's really it. Once you get into the flow and you find your flow, because none of this can really be structured. And I wouldn't recommend you, I mean, you can structure it, but that's up to you. I don't do it. Some people love structuring things, and you can use something like Buffer or I forget the other scheduling platforms that include Instagram and LinkedIn, but you can do everything from there if you want. But I just find it easy to log on every morning when I go and engage with people to post to Instagram, engage with people on Instagram, post to LinkedIn, engage with people on LinkedIn, post my Twitter's the main thing that's automated, just because ideas, it's like constant. You can do that as much as you want and schedule as much as you want there, and then take those and use them in all other places. And so I guess the last thing I didn't mention was that when I'm writing the newsletter, so one thing you can do when you're here is when you have the topic and you need some ideas for the actual newsletter itself, and nothing's coming to mind for this, when you're filling out the research section, let's say I'm writing on like enjoyment. So the last one was life enjoyment for me. So I can go to tweets, and then all I did was come into Twimex, I typed in enjoy, enjoyment, enjoying, enjoyed, and again, this is the importance of getting your Twitter up and running and writing good tweets from the start, is so that you can include them everywhere and have them spread even more. But what do you know? That's what I used in my Instagram post, right? Right here. So this was the newsletter. I included that in the newsletter and in this Instagram post. So you can see that Twitter is the foundation of everything. Like, if you can follow this entire process and content ecosystem, you're set. Nobody else is going to do this. Only the people that take this course, because it's taken 4 years for me to develop this. So if you can get this down and make Twitter the hub, but then use Twitter as your leverage point, not even in terms of your audience, but your ideas for all other platforms, you will win. You will win, my friends. So I believe, oh man, that's the end of the bachelor's curriculum. So if I'll see you in the master's curriculum, I'll see you there. You can upgrade if you would like from this one, from the master's or from the bachelor's curriculum. But it's sad to see you go. I hope you learned a lot. I know it was a lot. It's a lot to take in. So I recommend that you go back through, you refine, practice, give yourself time. Really give yourself time with this decade-long mindset, not 1 year, because it's more than possible. It really is. See, here's the thing. If you can practice tweet writing to the point of where your tweets are good, I really, that's the main lever. Like, you can't lose if you do that. You really can't lose, right? So start with good tweet writing, leveraging people's networks, and you're good to go. You're set. Like, you've won the game of social media. You're not banking on the social media platforms and organic growth or like self-generated growth to grow. You're banking on your ability to write and connect with other people. And that's it. So thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.